Welcome to the Society.
I'm Rampant Growth.
And I'm Nature's Lore.
And today we're rotating our crops.
What?
We're deck tech and crop rotation.
Alright, let's do it.
Alright. So we're going to start with our mana base. It's very simple. We run a bunch of original duels. So we use Bayou. We run 4 of those. Then we run 3 Taigas. Then we run 3 Badlands. After that, we do 2 Verdant Catacombs, 2 Wooded Foothills, and 2 Bloodstained Mires, so you can fetch for any land you need. Next, we go on to our unique mana-producing lands. We run 1 of each of these. We do a Tranquil Thicket, a Barren Moor, a Nurturing Peatland, a Golgari Rot Farm, and a Rakdos Carnarium. After that, we have our utility lands. We also only run 1 of each of these. We start with the Strip Mine. From there, we go to Glacial Chasm. Following that, the powerful Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. Then we go into Dark Depths, followed by Thespian Stage.
And that leads us to artifacts and enchantments. We have 3 Crucible of Worlds, 2 Elixir of Immortality, 2 Zurin Orb, 3 Exploration, and 1 Seismic Assault. And that leads us to instants and sorceries. We have 4 Crop Rotation, which is how this deck got its name, 3 Terminates, 1 Vampiric Tutor, 1 Demonic Tutor, 1 Green Sun Zenith, 2 Life from the Loam, and 3 Maelstrom Pulse.
As for creatures and planeswalkers, we run 3 Grazing Glade Hearts, 2 Omnath Locust A Rage, 2 the Gitrog Monster, and 1 Renan 6. Now we'll show you how this deck works. Grazing Glade Heart. This thing will keep you alive through so many problems. Every time you play a land, whenever one enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 2 life. So you play your Bayou at the start of the game, you gain 2 life. You play your Wooded Foothills, you gain 2 life. You pay 1 life to fetch for another land, and you gain 2 more life. That's just going to keep you going. Exploration. This is the most important enchantment in this entire deck. Not only is it cheap, but it has a crazy powerful ability. It allows you to play an extra land on your turn. That lets you ramp up and get way more powerful spells out way faster than your opponent. But it also has a lot of synergy with cards you'll see later on in this deck. So just to show some simple stuff, you get to play your land, Bayou. Now, if you have your Grazing Glade Heart on the battlefield, don't forget you gain 2 life. Now after that, with that Bayou, you go ahead and play another Exploration. That allows you to play in even more lands. So you play a Taiga. And don't forget again, you gain 2 life. Now that goes into another Exploration. See how this keeps going? You get to play more and more lands. So you play your fetch land, you gain 2 life. You sacrifice your fetch land, you pull out Badlands, gain 2 more life. Exploration is insanely powerful for a cheap cost. Crucible of Worlds is by far the most important artifact you have in this deck. For just 3 mana, you get the incredible ability of being able to play lands from your graveyard onto the battlefield. That takes all of your fetches and instantly makes them more powerful. Not only can you start with, say, a Verdant Catacomb, you then fetch for the Bayou you need, putting that Verdant Catacomb into your graveyard. But if you have Exploration, you can then play it again straight from your graveyard, fetching for yet another dual land. And don't forget, if you have Grazing Glade Heart on the battlefield, you've just gained a ton of life with that. If you haven't gotten the picture yet, this deck has an insane amount of triggers, and it is very difficult to keep track of everything. So go slow and make sure you pay attention.
Zurin Orb. A free artifact. Costs you nothing to play. Allows you to sacrifice your lands at your very will. Can keep you alive through the roughest attacks, or allow you to do some complex moves, which we'll show you. Crop Rotation. Where it all began. Crop Rotation is a fantastic card in this deck. Synergizes with everything very well. It also is a problem solver. It will fix any problem you're likely to encounter. For instance, let's say you have this Bayou here, but your opponent just has way too many creatures, and, well, that's not going to work for you. So, you crop rotate away your Bayou and replace it with this heavy-hitting Tabernacle. Well, for them, now they have an upkeep cost to their creatures. But for you, you can just simply sacrifice that Tabernacle to your Zurin Orb. Return it at will, with your Crucible of Worlds. And you never have to pay that upkeep cost. But let's say that that's not the situation you found yourself in. Maybe they only have one creature, but it's hitting you too hard. So instead, crop rotate for a Glacial Chasm. Now you take no damage. That's fantastic. Normally you'd have to pay 2 life to keep that card. Luckily for you, you can just sacrifice it to Zuran Orb at upkeep cost, and then return it afterwards. Or after an attack, for instance. Or, let's say you don't like to play that way. Maybe you just like to slowly drive your opponent into madness. So instead you grab this guy right here, Strip Mine, and slowly remove their lands one by one until they slip into madness. Dark Depths. So many should know this card very well. It is the card of nightmares for the most part. But many, maybe not all, know of its best friend. And that card is Thespian Stage. And why Thespian Stage is important? Well, because Dark Depths enters with 10 ice counters. And while you can pay to manually remove those, boy, is that really just a hassle. So Thespian Stage can just copy Dark Depths and boom, you have a 2020 Flying Indestructible Merit Liege Nightmare monster. Hope you enjoy. But what if you can't find your Thespian Stage? That would be quite a shame. I guess you can just tutor for it, or tutor for it, or tutor for it.
Drawing cards. Probably one of the most important facets of Magic in general. The more cards you have, the more opportunities you have, the easier it is to defeat your opponent. These next few lands, they help you with that. We're going to start with simple ones, your cycle lands. Your Barren Moor, Tranquil Thicket. Pay some mana, discard it from your hand, draw a card. Nice and simple. Once it's in your graveyard, you have Crucible of Worlds, so you can just play it right from the graveyard, put it back on the battlefield. Is that not enough for you? That's when you get these lands. Your Golgari Rot Farm, your Rakdos Carnarium. You play those, you have to return a land to your hand. So you go ahead and return a cycle land to your hand. Cycle it again, draw another card, play it back with the Crucible of Worlds. If you want to skip all of that complicated mess, it's fine. You can go with a Nurturing Peatland. You get the lands you need if you pay 1 life. Other than that, you tap, sacrifice it, draw a card. Play it from Crucible of Worlds, rinse and repeat, and repeat, and repeat, until you've drawn your entire deck. Also, again, don't forget, with all these crazy triggers, you're gaining a ton of life with all the land coming into the battlefield. Omnath, Locust A Rage. Is it weird? Of course. Is it expensive? Absolutely. Not financially, but, just to play it. But it has an amazing ability for this deck and some crazy synergy. Not only do you get to produce a creature every time you put a land into the battlefield, which, as you've seen earlier, is a lot. You're constantly cycling through. But whenever any of these creatures, or he dies, you deal damage, which is awesome. You get to pick your target, you can do it with the opponent, you can do it to the creatures, it doesn't matter. Now you pair that with some removal, and you can do some crazy stuff. Maelstrom Pulse. Destroy target non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name. Well, they're all named Elemental. That's 3 elementals there. I destroy my own elemental. That's 9 damage going wherever I want. That could change the game. That could win the game. It's kind of weird to destroy your own creatures and do it, but hey, it's an awesome backup win con if you need it. Now, let's go back to this landfall stuff. You're never going to play a land the same way ever again if you get Omnath's buddy out. Seismic Assault. Now, instead of playing into the battlefield and just having it be boring where you get an elemental creature, you just go ahead and discard that land from your hand. Now you get to deal 2 damage to any target. Creature, player, doesn't matter. Now you play that land from the graveyard back to the battlefield with Crucible of Worlds. You get another elemental, you gain some health, you deal more damage. It's awesome.
So by this point, we've shown you not every interaction, but quite a few interactions that take place. And you may have noticed that quite a few of them stem from having a Crucible of Worlds or an exploration. And while that is true, there are some other solutions for exploration, but what if your Crucible of Worlds just wasn't around? I mean, other than that just being a dark, depressing day, what would you do? Well, that's why we have this card in here. Life from the Loam. Very simply allows you to return lands, up to 3 of them, to your hand. Very simple. That synergizes so great with Omnath, Seismic Assault, in general, if you did have your Crucible worlds, but also, it buys you time until you get to your Crucible world. If nothing else, you can dredge 3, which is fantastic because you can place cards directly from your library into the graveyard. That may not sound good on paper, but when you consider that there's 26 lands in this deck, there's a good chance you're going to put some lands in there, and you're going to be able to build more lands without having use of fetches continuously through Crucible of Worlds. You'll also be able to fill your hand with more opportunities. You'll be able to see what's coming as opposed to what's in your graveyard already. Renan 6, how we've longed for you. As some of you may know, Renan 6 has gained quite a bit of popularity. From anyone who has messed around with Modern Horizons, they know that Renan 6 is quite sought after. And Renan 6 has found a perfect home inside this crop rotation deck. Is Renan 6 pivotal to the deck? No. Does Renan 6 make the deck just better? A little bit? Absolutely. Reason being, you could have your turn 1 dual land, or better yet, a fetch. Throw an exploration down, maybe throw another land out. Drop down your Renan 6 on turn 2, return your fetch, play your fetch again. Do you see where this is going? So fantastic for turn 2. Also, being able to destroy mana dorks that maybe your opponent just so heavily rests upon is very fantastic. And if you were to ever get that retrace, that emblem, that gold nugget at the end of the rainbow, well, that is something special. But once you pop out this emblem right here, and you can start discarding land cards to retrace instants and sorceries from your graveyard, well, this deck already can do so much. Trading life for damage, cards for damage, pretty much everything. Draw, gain life, deal damage, deal creature damage, create creatures, sacrifice, draw. Some of those are redundant, but the deck's redundant as well. It's part of what makes this deck so fun. There are so many ways to do the same or slightly different variations of itself. So for that reason, Renan 6 has a permanent home. Perhaps he'll have more of himself in the deck, but only time will tell.
Okay, we've shown you the ability to draw tons of cards. We've shown you the ability to play multiple lands per turn. We've showed you how to do direct damage. We showed you Renan 6, that beautiful, beautiful, weird tree creature, human elf. I don't even know. But I know what you're asking. Where's the frog? Well, here's the frog. By far, the most frustrating, most complex, most important part of this entire deck. A 6/6 Death Touch Frog Horror. I cannot state enough how much this one card changes everything, and how this one card alone is going to be responsible for endless misplays as well as just crazy dominant fun. I'm going to try and cover at least some of the most important things that surround this card. I'm sure I'll miss some. You can put them in the comments below and be like, you know, Lotus Society's dumb. They don't even know how to use their own card. Well, you figure it out, all right? Because this card is difficult. It's simple, but it's difficult with everything else. You'll see. All right, so you start off your turn. You have to sacrifice a land. Right off the bat, you have to. So you sacrifice a land. But a land went to your graveyard, so you get to draw a card. So what if that land is the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale? Well, you sacrifice that at your upkeep, so you don't have to pay to keep the Gitrog monster. You also then get to draw a card because it went to the graveyard, but because of Crucible of Worlds, you get to play it again. And because
the Gitrog monster also is an exploration, which, hey, it didn't have enough abilities, right? You can then go ahead and play, I don't know, Strip Mine. Sure, why not? And then just go ahead and sacrifice that Strip Mine, destroying a land, and you get to then draw a card, because, again, a land went into the graveyard. Now let's say we have some of the other fun stuff going on, like, Seismic Assault. You can then discard your lands, like we said before. But not only are you dealing damage, you get to draw a card. And then you play it from your graveyard, and if you have Omnath on the board, then you just create more and more creatures, more elementals, and through all this, you're still gaining life from grazing Glade Heart. And again, at any point in time, if you're bored or you're in trouble, you just sacrifice a land to gain 2 life from your Zurin Orb, which then draws you a card from the Gitrog monster, which then you see what I'm saying? Like, it keeps going. You have to go real slow with this thing. You basically need a notebook to write down and make sure you're going through everything. You're gonna screw up. It's that simple. I built this deck. I love this deck. I play it all the time. 60% of the time, I screw up something with the Gitrog monster and have to go, hang on. I'm an idiot. I forgot this. So key points. Big creature. Sacrifice a land on upkeep. Play an extra land. Draw a card whenever a land goes in the graveyard. If that's not enough for you, I don't know what to tell you. You're greedy. Stop being greedy. This card's amazing. And it's like $5, I think. I don't even know. It's crazy. I don't even know where we can go from here. This is the deck. Sure, there's things we didn't explain. There's all sorts of different combinations you can do. We don't have 3 hours. So I don't know what to tell you. But it's just, it's insane. You can play Nurturing Peatland and then sacrifice it to draw a card. But then it went to the graveyard, so you get to draw a card. And then you play it back from Crucible Worlds. You could Life from the Loam to return, lands from your graveyard to your hand. And then discard them to Seismic Assault and draw more. It's crazy. It just keeps going. So if you're going to build this deck, take a week. Learn it. Practice it. Write down the steps. This card makes everything crazy.
So final thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed watching the crop rotation deck. I hope you've learned. I hope you maybe slipped into madness like part of the Lotus Society did. That being said, if you have just handfuls of money laying around, you too can enjoy playing the crop rotation deck. If you have a small farm of crops, X amount of cows, and the desire, willing, and smarts to understand this deck, then by all means, the Lotus Society would like you to join us and play this deck. Show it all around. You will lose all your friends, but you'll grow as a person. Not really. You'll probably slip into madness. But I hope that you've enjoyed.